This is my last video on tinctures, and today I'm going to discuss the 4 most popular and common ways that people use herbal tinctures in medicine today. Okay, so my last few videos I talked about what the tinctures are. Now we're going to talk about the 4 main kinds that are used in medicine today. I'm also going to give you a preview of what's going to be coming up this week. After this particular video is done, or throughout the course of the next week, there's going to be 4 more videos coming out. First, we're going to discuss arnica flower. Then I'm going to discuss how to make an arnica infused oil, and then we're going to discuss how to make an arnica salve, and then I'm going to show you at the very end of the series how to make an arnica lotion. So that'll be in store for this week, but right now let's talk about the 4 main kinds of tinctures and which one I feel is the best way to use them. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with my least favorite tincture, and I'm going to work my way up my list to my most popular or my most favorite way to use a tincture and why I think that it's the most. Now, the one that I think out of the 4 we're going to discuss today, there's dozens of ways to make a tincture. They use solvents, they use methyl alcohol, ethyl alcohol, there's base acids, there's all sorts of bases, acids, there's all sorts of different ways that you can make a tincture. But I'm going to discuss the 4 easiest way that you could actually make them yourself. Some of those methods are really scientific and you have to have the right equipment to be able to make a tincture with those methods. So out of the 4 different ways that I'm going to discuss to make a tincture, my least favorite way to make a tincture is out of a glycerin. And the reason why is even though glycerin has no alcohol in it, so you don't have any of the adverse effects, when you make a glycerin tincture, you have to heat up the water. You have to heat up the herb. And if you're heating up the herb, you're going to lose some of those compounds. That's just going to happen. That's just what the physics and the chemistry says. You're going to lose those compounds, so they won't be there. So you're already going to lose efficiency by using a glycerin-based tincture. It is not the most optimal way to make a tincture in any way, shape, or form. It really isn't. But for people who are trying to avoid alcohol, and for the most common tinctures that are available on the market, you either have alcohol or you have glycerin. Those are your only 2 options, unless you're getting pharmaceutical-grade tinctures. And they're made with different chemicals entirely in most cases. So, my least favorite method is to use a glycerin-based. However, if you're worried about the alcohol part of it, clearly that's going to be the best choice for you. Number 3 on this list, and my third favorite way, I guess, to make a tincture would be to use vinegar to make your tincture with. Now, you don't have to use alcohol and you don't have to use glycerin. You can actually use vinegar to pull out your tincture. And if you use apple cider vinegar with the mother, that's probably even going to be a better option for pulling out the properties of the herb. So the acid from the vinegar will break down the cells of the plant for the most part, and you'll pull a lot of those properties out, and it'll be infused into the vinegar. So you pull them out, you'll strain it really well. It'll just be a flavored vinegar if you really want to look at it that way. It'll be flavored with the herbs. Now, this will pull out the properties. If you use fermented, it'll be a little bit better, but this is my number 3 on this list. Number 2 on this list, and I know for a fact that it's really going to surprise a huge majority of you, but number 2 on my list in regards to my favorite ways to take a tincture is alcohol-based. Now, I know I preach about how alcohol-based, and I harp about alcohol-based and how it's better and it's the most efficient way to remove the compounds, and for the most part, it really is. And I'll give you an example. If you're trying to make an extract or you're trying to get a tincture out of milk thistle, really the only way to get that silymarin and all those compounds out of the milk thistle is with alcohol. And it's been shown that way, right? Repeatedly, over and over and over again, it's been shown that if you want to get all the properties out of a milk thistle, you really have to use an alcohol base to dissolve a lot of the things that are holding those compounds in to make them more bioavailable for you. If you just take milk thistle by itself, you're not going to get all the properties. It will not be as effective. If you just take it as a glycerin-based tincture, the same thing. Really, the only way that you can extract a huge majority of those properties is if you use an alcohol-based tincture. So that is just one instance of where alcohol-based tinctures are better, but it's not my number 1. So I'm about ready to discuss my favorite way of using tinctures and the reason why. So my number 1 way of using a tincture, and I have no doubt that it's going to surprise a huge majority of you, but the number 1 way for to use a tincture would be to ferment your herbs and ferment the compounds, and that way that will make them literally the most bioavailable, and they're going to be aided by a lot of bacteria. When you ferment something, it creates a lot of bacteria, and this bacteria, as long as the fermentation was good, will benefit your body. So I'm going to give one example of where fermented is better, and then I'll let you guys loose, and you can go do a little bit of research on your own and tell me what you think. And let me know what you think of my list in the comments. So the reason why I feel that fermented is better is when it comes to red clover flower. So if you use red clover flower as a tea or if you take it as a capsule, it's been known to help slightly with menopausal symptoms, if you, including osteoporosis. It helps to slow the progress of osteoporosis if you use red clover flower both in tea and capsule form, or if you just eat it plain, right? It'll help lessen that severity. It'll still happen, but it'll be less. Now, if you take red clover flower as an alcohol extract, so if you make it out of grain alcohol, you turn it into drops, it will still help, but it doesn't stop the progression of menopausal symptoms such as osteoporosis. However, what has been discovered is when they ferment red clover flowers, it stops osteoporosis. It doesn't slow it down. It doesn't make it less severe. It stops the progression of osteoporosis. And there's been multiple studies done on this. And this works so well, in fact, that now that I'm trying really hard to find the name of it, but there's a pharmaceutical company that makes a fermented red clover flower pharmaceutical drug and gives that to their patients in the treatment of osteoporosis. Once I find the name, I'll go ahead and throw it out there. If you can find the name, go ahead and throw it out there and put it in the comments. If you thought this video was useful, that would also be a good idea to go ahead and throw that onto the comments, and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video today. Stay tuned for Arnica this week.